Hello there folks, welcome back to ESC Adam, and it's time for another video specifically on the road to Eurovision 2026 next year. One question that comes up every single year but feels like there's a bit more weight to it this time around is who's not going to be there? Who will not be returning to Vienna next year for 2026? Now, there's the usual staples, if you like, countries that have been gone for quite a long time. Countries like Turkey, don't think they're coming back. There's not been much rumbling there. When you look on the wiki page at the minute in terms of confirmed non-participation, there's only a few. There's little old Andorra, which hasn't taken part since 2009. There was like a vague discussion about that they might return, but then that got kiboshed pretty quickly. There's also Bosnia and Herzegovina. Unfortunately, it was confirmed that they won't take part next year. They haven't taken part since 2016, so we're on 10 years now that they haven't, and there's a whole slew of things going on there, some financial, some social. It's a really difficult situation for their broadcaster BHRT to come back at the minute. I think we did have some vain hopes that maybe with it being the 70th that there'd be some way for them to return, but it looks like that isn't happening. There's also Slovakia. Now, Slovakia hasn't taken part since 2012, so again, it's been quite a long time since we've seen them. And they actually gave a sort of statement as to why. It says the costs of full participation, including licensing fees, production, logistics, are disproportionately high compared to the revenues and the societal impact, which you could argue is fair for certain countries. Slovakia's only taken part a handful of times. They haven't necessarily always done that well, so I can see why they necessarily want to sit out. But what about everybody else? So last year, or this year, I had to say, in Basel, we had 37 countries take part. That, of course, was meant to be 38, and we had the last-minute withdrawal of Moldova, which was such a big shame that they dropped out. In many ways, I feel they represent a lot of the heart of Eurovision and what Eurovision could and should be, so we didn't have them. In terms of their return, we haven't heard anything officially yet. There's been rumblings that the broadcaster there wants to organise a sort of their own national final like they have done, but then they did that and then no song went through. So at this current time I'm recording, early September 2025, early into the 2026 season, we don't know about Moldova. It'd be great if they would come back. I'd love to see them, but there's not really any indication of that as of yet. So we did have 37 countries over in Basel. And again, the time I'm recording this, first week of September, 26 countries have confirmed their intent to participate. I think that's very important to distinguish. I know a lot of fans are aware of this, but just in case you're not, the countries who take part aren't really official until the EBU or the Eurovision pages announce themselves, like how many countries are taking part. Typically, this will happen towards the end of the year, so December this year, we'll probably see that official list. It may even be a little bit longer, as they have extended the deadline in which broadcasters can withdraw without incurring a fine. We'll come to that in a little bit later. But that is when the official list of participants comes out. So at the minute, anything up until that official announcement, it's just that they're intending to participate. The broadcasters want to take part. And you've got a lot of the usual mainstays in there. In fact, the list of provisional participants at the Eurovision 2026 at the moment, you have Albania, Australia, Austria, Azerbaijan, Cyprus, Czechia, Denmark, Finland, Germany, Greece, Iceland, Ireland, Israel, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malta, Montenegro, Netherlands, Norway, Serbia, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, Ukraine, and the United Kingdom. So once again, that is just an intent to participate. They want to take part. Doesn't necessarily mean all of them will. So what about some other countries that aren't on that list? Well, according on the wiki page here, we have countries like Poland, where someone from the delegation said a decision will come sometime mid-September, so probably in a few weeks. I'd like to think that they're sort of a given with Poland. You never know, but I'd like to think they'll be coming back for certain. You have Kazakhstan, which we've talked about in a previous video. Kazakhstan broadcaster wants to debut. They've asked the EBU Director General. That might well happen for the 70th. We don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see. Italy have sorted out their national selection, the San Remo Festival. They've sorted out that that's going to happen in San Remo, but in terms of using it to select its entry for Eurovision, that's still pending at the minute. They haven't technically confirmed their participation either. So if we lost one of the big five, that could potentially shape things up. But as we remember, Eurovision got on just fine from 97, I think it was it 97 or 98 to 2011 without Italy. So if needs be, they could go without them again. But then you have some countries like Belgium, for example. Now, it says in July that it hadn't yet confirmed its 2026 participation. It intends to wait as what it's waiting for. That's a very good question. It could be on a number of factors. It could be confirming that they've got the means to do so. Belgium hasn't done too well these past 2 years, not qualifying for the final. There is other factors in it as well, naturally, with the participation of Israel. This is an issue for a few of the different countries, a few of the different broadcasters. Immediately after the Basel contest, some of them spoke out, Belgium being one of them. I believe Ireland was another, Iceland and Slovenia, to name a few. Now, some of those other countries, Ireland and Iceland, for example, they voiced their intent to participate at the moment. Again, we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. But there's also countries like San Marino, little old San Marino, who in August said that they haven't yet made a decision in participating. Now, there's been back and forth in San Marino amongst the officials about whether they should participate or whether they're going to again. Again, they're a very small nation, limited resources. They'd argue that the voting system for them, not just generally, but in the semi-finals, is unfair. Now, they did qualify in Basel, but they did end up finishing dead last, unfortunately. And they've been one I've sort of been wondering if they will participate or not. But if they don't, I think that'll be a shame in a similar way to the Moldova situation, how San Marino's entries pack a lot of heart and charm and sort of embody a lot of what Eurovision is about for me. So if we lost them as well as Moldova, that'd be a pretty big blow, if you ask me. Big blow for a small nation, but a big blow nonetheless. And perhaps the most prolific one, especially recently, is Slovenia. Now, very recently, I'm talking a couple of days ago, their broadcaster, RTV SLO, or RTV Slow, if you like, they decided they'll see if they'll participate once the EBU makes a decision on Israel's future participation and addressing concerns surrounding the transparency of the vote in December. And that if Israel is allowed to compete, then they simply won't. Now, there's been some articles floating around saying the language was a bit more inflammatory than that, if you like, saying that they're probably not going to take part because they just feel like they're ignored. And I think with all the things that have happened recently, Slovenia, again, sadly, feels like a very realistic chance of being a no-show next year. They, alongside other broadcasters, have been really ramping up the pressure on the EBU to address what's been going on with the voting and of course the Israeli participation, which is a very contentious issue no matter what side of the debate that you fringe on. How this is going to work is that in the summer the EBU held one of their 2 general assemblies. This is where all the broadcasters of the EBU are invited to come and discuss basically what's going on, and one of those was regarding, I believe, Israel's participation in Eurovision for next year. Now, they didn't end up voting on it there and then. The vote was then pushed to the 2nd General Assembly, which is happening in Geneva in December. As far as I understand, this is in like the first few days of December. When they go to this conference, this assembly, this is where this voting question will happen regarding Israeli participation. How that vote is designed to work, again, I'm not privy to it. From my understanding, this isn't a question of Khan, the Israeli broadcaster. This isn't a question of their membership to the EBU, because to get them out of that would involve, I'm sure, a lot more deliberation than is being planned. As far as I understand, this is purely relating to their participation in Eurovision for the next year. We've all seen, I'm sure, on the news that things over in the Middle East have ramped up considerably over this past year, not for the good either. There is a lot more discussion being had. This is a lot more than was being discussed by the EBU last year after the Malmö contest, I'll tell you that much. But as to not which way this vote's going to go, we're really not sure, because it's not just the broadcasters who typically participate in Eurovision. As far as I understand, this is for all broadcasters, all members of the EBU to vote upon. This will be broadcasters that have no involvement with Eurovision Song Contest whatsoever. It will be from broadcasters whose countries don't take part in it either. Or in other cases, for example, here in the UK, the BBC, of course, helms Eurovision on regard for the UK, but ITV, a fellow broadcaster, is also a member of the EBU, so in theory they're going to have a vote on this as well. I'm not sure what the total number is for EBU members currently. I think it's somewhere between like 70 and 80, but the point being, when this vote happens in December, they're all going to potentially get a say, and like most votes, there'll probably be a for, an against, and probably abstain as well, a reluctance to vote. So it seems like for Slovenia in particular, their future in Eurovision is depending on this vote. And I do wonder if it might start, if they do withdraw, if that will start the domino effect. Like I said, the EBU has extended the deadline to withdraw without a fine. Normally it's in October. They've extended it to December, presumably to tie in with this vote, because they have got their heads screwed on to a degree. They are aware that this vote is very contentious and the outcome of the vote could influence a lot of things. Maybe the vote doesn't go the way Slovenia want it to, they withdraw, and then all those other broadcasters, Iceland, Ireland, Belgium amongst them, maybe they'll go too. Maybe we could have a vastly reduced Eurovision for the 70th anniversary, which I'll tell you now, the EBU does not want that. I think, thankfully, they've removed their heads from the sand in pretending nothing's going on. I think they're very well aware, but I also think they're very cautious of how this is going to go. Obviously, we don't know that. We'll have to see, but I think, of the countries that might not return, Slovenia probably ranks as one of the highest, which would be, again, like I said, it'd be a real shame to lose them, but it just might be what happens ultimately. But let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think they're going to drop out? Who do you think would drop out next year, if anyone? Let me know all those thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like on it, subscribe to the channel as well. More videos are going to be coming during the off season and then in the build up. In the meantime, I've been Adam from ESC Adam. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.